My name is still Ajuluchuku Okabwe, and this morning in the studio, I have, loaded professors here with me, and we'll be talking on the topic that is really concerning you and I, talking about the Nigerian educational system. But before I let the cat out of the bag on the topic that we'll be talking about, let me introduce the gentlemen that we have this morning that will be doing justice to what we have to discuss about. First, I have with me here Professor Obiajulu Obikeze, lecturer, Political Science Department, Chukwuemeka Odumugu, Juku University. That's Ibaria. Professor, good morning. Glad to have you here.
Good morning, my pleasure.
And also we have Professor Dennis Aribodo, Department of Parasitology and Entomology, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Healthcare, Zonal Coordinator, ASU Owe Zone, and Professor of Public Health Parasitology. Good morning, Professor. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Good morning.
And to our viewers out there, what we're talking about here is abolishing TETFUND. Yeah, and we're asking, is it a threat to our educational system in this part of the world? Well, let us make you understand that the TETFUND is the government agency that was formed in order to sponsor most of our universities and provide them with the necessary money in order for them to have researches and then make our schools viable for learning and secure the future of Nigerian tertiary institutions. And let us get down to the nitty-gritty of what we have here today. Let me start with Professor Dennis. Sincerely speaking, can you just throw more light on this TETFUND issue so that our viewers out there and many Nigerians, likewise those in the university, to know what is actually bedeviling or befalling them as we speak, with this decision of government trying to, play, will I say, the devil's advocate in either removing it or improving. I would probably say improving the workings of this.
They're working towards abolishing, not improving.
But I said in my own opinion, they should be thinking of improving on the workings of TETFUND. But just give us a general overview of what TETFUND is so that our viewers can understand what we're talking about.
Thank you, my good friend Okabwe. Long time. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much.
And my colleague, Professor, I salute you.
My
pleasure. Today we are discussing TETFUND, and TETFUND is a product of ASU struggle in the 1990s under Babangida administration. After SAP, which Nigeria rejected, and the military government of Babangida insisted on SAP because it was driven by IMF and the World Bank. There became crises in the tertiary education in Nigeria, especially the universities. No funding, no research, no training, infrastructural decay, and they also embarked on a series of struggles. And these struggles led to an agreement in 1993. And the government said that they have no money to fund the agreement. And ASU, as a patriotic and responsible organization, say, government, we know where the money is. And government say, ASU, please help us. And ASU brought out the idea of taxing the profit of organizations in Nigeria. 2% of the profit, that is what it was initially. And that was how we came to have what was called Education Tax Fund. It was initially ETF, Education Tax Fund, which was funding from primary to tertiary education in Nigeria until the year 2011, because of the problem of inadequate intervention to tertiary institutions in Nigeria. There was a repeal of the act, also engineered by ASU. And that repeal saw Education Tax Act became Tertiary Education Trust Fund. And that's how it came to be. The idea was to focus intervention to tertiary institutions so that there can be meaningful impact, especially when we now have universal basic education for primary and secondary education. So they say focus this intervention to only tertiary institutions. And in that way, universities are meant to have 2:1:1. That is, if you bring the money, you give universities in the ratio of 2, polytechnic is 1, college of education 1, so that infrastructural decay can be arrested and new structures built in place, equipment can be procured and maintained, academics, lecturers, both in the university, polytechnics, college of education, can be trained, because if you don't train and retrain them, you won't be teaching what will solve Nigerian problem. So that is, in summary, what you call TETFUND today. That is how it came to be.
And now, from what you said now, this was probably to, let's say, secure the future of Nigerians studying in Nigerians, and probably Africans that come to study in Nigeria. Probably to give us that leap, that platform whereby we can see that educational-wise, this country is progressing.
Yes, education.
Excuse me. Yeah, so you are so much interested in the future. Today we are talking about future. Anyway, it's good to think of future. From what you have said,
yeah,
TETFUND has history.
Yeah.
It has history, and I'm happy he has very well stated the history of TETFUND in Nigeria. And it came as a result of struggles, as a result of demands, as a result of the decay in the educational system. And then, as responsible organization, has now had to come in to make some useful suggestions. Yeah. And kindly, and then respectfully to the government of the day, even though it was a military government, they listened, and we were able to put in place a fund that will take care of education holistically from primary to university level. And it has been working very well. To the extent that most of the institutions in Nigeria can rightly be called TETFUND universities.
Okay, some universities can be called tech, but that means some schools are getting the benefit more than others. And why is this so?
No, not that. What we mean is that the governments, who are the owners of institutions, have left more or less in the hands of the TETFUND. Most of the trainings, most of the sponsorship, most of the research and educational materials that have to do with it, government should provide, are now left in the hands of TETFUND. That's what, when you come to most of these institutions, you see TETFUND buildings, TETFUND libraries, TETFUND
laboratories, and the rest of it all.
Anything that will help education move. And then what led to this issue is that within these 1980s and 90s and up to 2000, even up to today, you now witness a kind of brain drain. Many Nigerian lecturers and professors were leaving for greener pasture. And then many people, especially as you felt that things should not continue. That was how TETFUND came in place.
Now, let me get back to you, Professor Aribodo. Now, TETFUND, the government is saying, okay, fine, we don't want this thing any longer. Let's abolish it and the rest of it all. Why would the government come to that conclusion if you said that TETFUND was actually doing a yeoman's job in trying to secure facilities for the university, tertiary institutions, and the rest of it all? So what's happening now that the government has decided no longer should this go? Is it a case of, what could be the reason?
Okay. Before I attempt that question, let me also add to what my colleague said here, that because some universities, in fact, almost all public universities, TETFUND universities.
All public?
I said, yes. Almost all public universities today can be classified as TETFUND universities, because if you visit any university, look at the buildings that are there, read the inscriptions in those buildings. Either you see ETF or you see TETFUND. And it is worse in state universities.
I've even seen some vehicles branded.
Those are the equipment we are talking about. Vehicles are classified as equipment. Even laboratories, studios, seats. These are TETFUND. And if you go to most state universities, including the one in Anambra State here, I don't think there has been major intervention from government in building any infrastructure there in the last more than 10 years. I don't think so. What you see there are mostly structures built by TETFUND, labs fought by TETFUND, lecturers sent to improve their training via TETFUND. And you ask yourself, what is happening?
So what is the government
Does it mean that government does know that it is their responsibility to fund education, that education is a public good, that any investment in education is for the good of the society? So that is the main reason why we call it TETFUND University. Now, coming to your question, you see, ours is a country that hardly embarks on research before coming out with policies. That is the brain of Nigeria. Most people just wake up one day, think about the immediate environment. They don't want to go into what happened, and they want to abolish TETFUND. Recall that under Obasanjo, because of the problem he had with ASU, insisting on standards, funding, autonomy, improved condition of service, Obasanjo threatened that he would flood Nigeria with private universities. And you know he has one, Bells University. And as we speak today, we have more private universities than public universities. Unfortunately for them, over 95% of Nigerian students, both in the universities, polytechnics, and the college of education, over 95% are in public universities. So they have less than 5%. And the answer, what is the reason? Nigerians are too poor to fund, to go to private institutions to learn. That is the reason. And that is why we keep on insisting in us that education is a public good. Education is a public good. Okay, look at the budget for education. Take the last 10 or 15 years. It has been between 5 and 7%. Even the current budget before National Assembly is 7% to education.
So Nigeria is not even measuring up to the United Nations standard.
They are not even measuring up to their own manifesto. When we read APC manifesto in 2015, they said they will give education 15%.
15%? That's
what APC manifesto said. But that one they said they will do. They've not gone beyond 7%. You know, budgeting is different. Release is different. So we're talking about budgeting. This 2025 budget is in the National Assembly. It is 7%. And you ask yourself, do you understand?
Yeah.
So that is the problem. So the idea of abolishing or killing TETFUND is the idea of promoting their private investments in
which 95% of Nigerians can't even afford.
That is the truth now. Even you as a big man in ABS today, can you pay the school fees of any private university for your children? Even for one. Can your salary take care of it? You cannot. I'm a professor. My salary cannot pay a session fee of any public university in Nigeria.
Public or private?
I mean private. Okay. Private university. My salary cannot pay that. In fact, they can't even sustain me for 1 week. Not to talk of paying. So the idea of abolishing TETFUND is because they have created what they called TETFUND. TETFUnd. So that they will give loan to students. When they now give loan to students, students will now go and pay school fees in private universities. And in that way, they will kill public universities, as they have killed primary schools and secondary schools owned by government. That is the idea. That is the idea. It's about the enterprise. And if you look, who are the owners of these private universities? They are mostly politically exposed persons, apart from a few that are missionary or religiously owned.
Yeah.
Most of them, over 90%, are are politicians.
So
that is to answer your question, the idea of killing TETFUND is the idea of promoting their own businesses, which is not in public interest, which is not for the good of this country, and should be resisted.
Now, talking about resistance now, let me come to Professor Obiajulu. What role can Nigerians, starting from the schools that are going to be affected, parents that have the intent to send children to affordable universities to get quality education? Because I think the word here should be quality. Because from the overview of what TETFUND stands for, to provide financial support for tertiary institutions, to provide academic excellence in tertiary institutions, to support research in these institutions, and to build facilities, equipment, just like Professor said earlier on. If TETFUND now comes and take over TETFUND, what happens to the growth of Nigeria universities? In fact, education in this part of the world. What can we do to arrest this thing?
Well, I don't think he said that TETFUND is coming to take over TETFUND. TETFUND is intended to give some loan to students who will now, instead of going to public universities, they off to private universities.
With which salary?
TETFUND, the proposed tax proposes that by the year 2030, that is next 5 years, TETFUND should no longer exist. Only TETFUND will exist. And what does that mean? Debt to public universities.
So to answer your question,
so
how do we now regulate ourselves from this quagmire? The issue is that education primarily is a social service. And as a social service, you don't expect immediate gain out of it or profit, because you can't even see the investment you are making. But you see you see the manifestation.
The transformation.
Yes, exactly. The society will transform. And if the society will transform, how do we now approach this issue? Is that we have to go back to the society. And the society is made up of the owners of the school, the parents, the students, the teachers, and the rest of us. And then government. Unfortunately, it is government that should be investing in this education that is trying to cause this havoc that may kill the system with time. So if the students are very well educated and informed and wizened to take challenge that what the government is doing is not in the best interest of many Nigerians or majority of Nigerians. And then ASUA has been doing its best. At a point, ASUA has been tagged as a troublesome organization who doesn't care about the people.
The welfare of the students.
Of the people. Generally, they think ASUA is fighting for themselves, for their salary. What it has come to show with the issue of TETFUND, that ASUA is even interested in the welfare of the members. More or less, we find that there should be laboratories in schools, there should be libraries in schools, there should be reagents, that electricity should work.
Hostels for students.
Doing research without electricity. And there are some of the universities that don't even have a national grid, and yet they're universities. So these are some of the problems. And so if we must have to do that, there must have to be a lot of education, a lot of enlightenment, a lot of talking to the people to understand that this is not in the interest of the people. And with time, there's become a right uprising in the society because the government didn't think very well, or is not thinking in the interest of the people. They should, as a matter of fact, think a way of trying to enhance the well-being and the betterment of society, rather than just thinking about their selfish interest. The universities established by the big people in society. I don't think that's the way to go. So all of us must have to team up, and they can only do that by getting educated, getting enlightened, wiping out the ignorance, because if us continue to do it alone, they'll be branded troublesome as already done. So all of us must have to join hands to inform the people. We need information with data that what the government wants to do in the next 5 years is to the detriment of the reality of all of us.
Yeah, statistics hitting us says that the UK over the past 1.5 years have generated 90 billion in just educational migration of Nigerians to just study there. If that money could be harnessed and plowed into Nigerian universities across the board, wouldn't that in some way help in this funding that TETFUND, even with the state government 2%, like you said, is not even cutting the mustard state. So now, what can we do in order to end this brain drain that we are having? Most parents sending their kids abroad and most Nigerians living for greener pastures over there. Can there be any way to balance the equation so that we can have a better learning environment in this part of the world?
Yes, you see, just as I stated earlier, we have a system of government in Nigeria, whether it is federal, state, or local government, where they hardly consult. And this country is blessed with human brain power, let me put it that way. There is no problem in this country that there is no solution in this country for it. And as I'm talking to you, ASU has in 2012 under Goodluck Jonathan reminded government that our universities are not working. Government doubted it.
That's 13 years ago.
Yes, government doubted it, and they set up what was called needs assessment to go around universities and find out what is the state of the universities. And when they came back with the report, it was what they saw was terrible. To the extent that they said that students go to toilets in the bush. Students use stove to do practicals instead of using Bunsen burner. Students sleep 10 in a room. Lecture halls are crowded. You know, there's a ratio. There's a ratio of lecturer to student, and it should be more than 30 for any class. For some courses, it is 1 lecturer to 15. That is the standard.
Which standard is this?
NUC standard in Nigeria. I'm a professor of public parasitology. I'm not supposed more than 25 students. That's the ratio.
Science-based classes.
That's the ratio. But
maybe
from here, I'm going to a class. I have a class of 250 students. Most of them will be standing. Most of them will not hear what I'll be saying, except that I have bought my personal microphone, which I now use to teach. Do you understand? So in that 2012, government brought into ASU position to know the problem of Nigerian, the needs of Nigerian universities. And they came up with needs assessment report, which government agreed with ASU that they needed to inject 1.3 trillion naira over a space of 6 years to revitalize our Nigerian universities. It was an agreement. And it took strike of 2013 to get Goodluck Jonathan. Remember, he met with us for almost 13 hours to accept to release the first 200 billion to both federal and state universities. Universities like Anambra got more than 5 billion. Kogi got more than 3 billion. If you go to those universities today, look at some of the buildings. You will see needs assessment building
projects
as we struggle. So the point I'm trying to make is that the idea of that needs assessment was to revitalize the university. And when university is revitalized, you don't need to send your children abroad because you have adequate facilities, adequate manpower, both lecturers and non-academic staff, adequate laboratories, adequate hostels. In fact, you can even run 2 streams in academic session. We propose all those things.
2 streams?
Yes, it's possible to do that instead of multiplying universities everywhere. You can run morning, afternoon, day shift and night shift.
Maybe 8 to 12.
If these facilities are there. But after Goodluck provided that first distance, it took series of strike, and they've not even met up to 300 billion out of 1.3 trillion. And that is what is called revitalization fund for universities. It's not going to our pocket. And if they had done that, remember that in the 70s, people are coming from all over the world.
Yeah, I remember.
To study in Nigeria. Even as at 1990, 1991 and 2, I saw with some Cameroonians in Nigeria, in this Anambra University. I studied with them. But it's no longer there because the system has deteriorated. Standards are no longer there. Even recruitment process is a problem. When universities were universities, don't just wake up and become a university lecturer. You are passed through the crucibles. Because you are coming there to speak the truth. First of all, to speak the truth, know the truth, speak the truth, and defend the truth. No matter who is involved, even if it's president of Nigeria. And that's why interpretations are immune from many things. They are the one that can come out and say, this your policy is wrong, and give you evidences why it is wrong. Try this option. Go to civilized countries in this world. They are thriving because they invested more, and they still invest more in education. That is the only difference. Whether it is in incubation technology, whether it anywhere, But here, as we are talking, even state governments do not budget up to 10% for education. Just that recently I had a thing who said budgeted about 30%. And you can see transformation going on in that place now. So the idea of stopping funding countries like UK, US with our money is with our political leaders, the government of the day, to push money to education. If you will not do 26%, recommended by UNESCO, do 50%, 15%, you said in your own manifesto. That is where to start. Education is not cheap. And this country has that money to fund every Nigerian citizen to first degree.
To first degree?
Yes.
200 million Nigerians.
How many people are in Nigerian universities?
All of us won't go to university at the same time.
How many people are in the universities?
200, just the total population. Some of them.
How many people are in universities? This country has, we've told them where the money is, but they don't want to touch it. You see, any day government decides that this country will move forward, they have credible bodies like us to work with. But they're not looking for your money. They're not looking for your glorification. This country has the money to fund every Nigerian up to first degree.
Now, coming to talk about this issue of funding of the university and the underfunding aspect of it, is it the policy, the government policy that is mediating against these things, or could it be the persons that we have in position of power? Because I remember then, when Goodluck came in, people were saying that he's very educated, so let's believe that the educational sector of Nigeria would take a giant leap. But nobody saw any of that, just like you complained about the agreement you had with Goodluck Jonathan, over 1.3 million and only 300 was disbursed up to now. So could it be a case of government policies that we need to, rejig, check, and probably maybe bring something new? Or could it be the people that we have in the corridor of power? Where can we actually change this so that we'll take off from there?
Well, the issue is that you can't divert government policies from the people who are in government. And then who are those people who are in government? They are the same class of people who want their self-interest rather than the interest of many of us. So the government wants to do those things that they feel that will benefit their own class.
Their own person.
Their own class. They have, it's now a class issue. And so whenever you get there, that same class will tell you this is our stand on issues. And then the government, the person in power, even though Jonathan was once a university lecturer, he didn't even behave as if he was. And so that's part of it. So once they come in, they now channel them to where their interests are. So, and they start to work towards satisfying those interests rather than just fending for the people that are elected to do. And then that also will tell us the issue of recruitment process.
Very important.
Recruitment process in the issue of leadership or rulership. So the issue of recruitment, how did the people come into power? The way they came into power will tell you where their interests will be, the policies they project and that kind of thing. And not when you have been sponsored, when you've been brought to do a bidding. How would you now go back and then think about the interest of the masses? That is the problem. If we must get it right, we have to go back to the recruitment process. A situation where the interest and the voice of the people, the people must say who will govern them and how the society will be governed. That's the situation we have found.
I don't know whether I can come in briefly.
Just briefly before we go for this break.
You see, Prof has captured it very well. You see, most of the policies we have in this country are not made in Nigerian policies. We must get that right. Nigeria is being manipulated and controlled by outside forces. Remember that under Obasanjo, there was plan to close down universities because IMF and World Bank said that we don't need universities. So these people dictate what we do. And our government hardly listens to their own people. I've given you a group of people called DASO that has provided alternatives to every bad policy of government. But because this, when Donald Trump, the one that is in UK now, the Prime Minister, Starmer, when they were campaigning to be Prime Minister or President, did they come to Nigeria?
No.
Did they?
No.
But every Nigerian president will go to Chatham House or Washington. What are they going there to do?
I seek approval.
So it is a fundamental problem. Most times we don't have our leaders. Though what we have there are impostors. Yes, they're in government, they're impostors. Tell me a country where you will say that for you to buy a form to contest even a government chairman, House of Reps, Senate, you spent as much as 5 million naira. Not 5 million. Presidency was 100 million.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, what is the minimum wage in this country? So it's an exclusive club, as Prof said, designed to knock out those that will bring transformation.
Well, thank you. We'll definitely continue after we'll come back for this short break. Let's hear from our street parliamentarians what they actually are going to be saying, their opinion on this issue of TETFUND abolishment, even though you just made it known to us that it's a 5-year window that we have here. But let's see how that goes around. We'll take it back from here when we come back for the break. Don't go anywhere.
I think companies are asked to take 2% of their income, which is channeled to that provision. If we are talking about, if people are now thinking that the TETFUND should be abolished, we need to first and foremost ask what is the. We need to review what has been the contribution of the TETFUND so far. The fund that is being provided, has it been well been utilized, or is it part of the corruption pool? We should abolish because before I say it should be abolished, I should understand properly what so far it has been used for. The funding, I'm not in that field, so to know better the level of impact that TETFUND has had in the system. So I think people in that system should be able to know better. But for me, anything that will be done to improve on our educational system should be encouraged, because education is key to command development.
Over the years, it has actually been the benchmark for education infrastructure in most universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And I believe it should continue. What government needs to do is to make sure there is an oversight function towards ensuring that money released are actually used for specific projects as earlier envisaged. But scrapping it will be a boomerang effect against education infrastructure in tertiary institutions. That is the truth.
A form of assistance to universities whereby these schools are able to access some amenities to make these students have a comfortable environment to learning. If these things are helping out these students, then why abolish it? So for me, there is no need to abolish it. They should keep on with that, but there should be a need whereby the government should be able to put up more transparent means whereby these people can be able to access these amenities. So when you talk about this, we can really see that, okay, these things are made available to students, not just talking about TETFUND everywhere. Okay, so for me, abolishing it is going to have some negative consequences on students.
I think taking off TETFUND would actually greatly impact the quality of education in Nigeria, because, for example, I attended Anambra University, and a lot of infrastructure then, school buildings, classrooms, halls, laboratories, were actually TETFUND funded projects. So I think that when you remove TETFUND, when you abolish it, I don't know how such infrastructure will come to be in our universities.
That's a big question there. When you remove TETFUND funding, the young man says he doesn't know how funding or probably improvement of our Nigerian universities will come up. But then, still talking about TETFUND, talking about federal government, talking about lecturers, ASU and the rest of it all, VCs. When we talk about the issue of TETFUND, are we going to be saying the reason why federal government wants to abolish this could be the fact that there is no accountability in the monies disbursed to some of these universities? Because it's very easy for people to come up and say, yeah, you guys are responsible for fostering unqualified people to rust the electorate when it has to do with elections. When you see VCs, coalition officers and the rest of it, returning officers, and then they model up the whole thing. So probably Nigerians might be saying, are these lecturers, are these so-called academias, you understand, actually the right people to even manage the resources of this TETFUND that we are having, that the government actually want to abolish. Let me come to you, Professor Adibodi.
This is a very important question.
Accountability.
First of all, let me make it clear that the university administration in particular, does not spend TETFUND money. You may be surprised to hear that. TETFUND projects are already in Abuja. Any strong politician or man of means can get TETFUND project. What university does is to process the paper, maybe for staff training or what they will say they need, a conference. They process those that should get it. Sometimes there is corruption in that one also because they put their own people. Even those who struggle for the TETFUND don't get it. They do that. So they package those things. The same TETFUND will credit that money directly to the individual, not to the university. So that has to be understood. And that is why part of the reforms we are pushing in TETFUND is that before any project is built in any university, stakeholders in university will come together and say, this is what we want. These are the specifications. Because sometimes when they build these things, they build substandard or buy substandard products. That is aside. Coming to your question, the role of VCs and academia in enthroning leaders in Nigeria. Let me make it clear, both to you and to our viewers, that under Jega as INEC chairman, I think that was 2011, he invited ASU to be part of Nigerian electoral process. I said ASU. I didn't say university administration. Because Jega was a former ASU president, we honored him by participating in that election. After that election, we reviewed our participation and communicated Jega as INEC chairman that going forward, ASU as an organization will not participate in Nigerian elections unless you fulfill certain conditions. So one, ASU will be part of the electoral process from beginning to the end. Not when you have done all the wayo and you now call us to come and legitimize.
Announce
so we told him, for us to participate going forward, these are the conditions. We will be involved from point A to Z. And maybe those around Jega positions couldn't allow him to accept that proposal. And we pulled out as ASU. When ASU pulled out, what did government and INEC do? They resorted to using vice chancellors. Vice chancellors now appoint those, not ASU, so that you place it properly.
Because the general idea.
No. After that Jega's, after that one participation under Jega, we pulled that as a union. Whoever goes there goes on his own. So what INEC and government does now is to tell VC to submit list. The vice chancellors who are appointed by government submit a list of those who will go and do the job. So it's not ASU that is in there. It's not academia. And you know that how some of these VCs emerge. You saw what happened in Anambra University in the last 2 months. As soon as such a person became the vice chancellor and was asked to appoint people that will go, what do you think will happen? He will appoint those that will go there and rig elections, and you blame it on us. No. Just like some people say that ASU people have been ministers of education. No, you don't tell us that. If you want us to give you minister of education, tell us to please give us a minister of education. Every father or mother or parent knows his child that is good in certain things. We will look inwards and say this is the best person for this job. Not coming to my family and take somebody and say he's not representing us. So the point has to be made clear that it is the vice chancellors that nominate names of those that go for INEC elections, not ASU. And who appoints vice chancellors? Government. Whether it is in state university or federal university, government. So that is where the problem is. And that's why we say that recruitment process is fundamental to addressing not just educational decay, but fundamental changes in Nigerian country. That is the only way forward. Any other thing we are doing, we are just beating about the bush. Because if we don't recruit our leaders following
the due process,
popular process, if you use the word, they will tell you it is due. I've told you here, I'm a professor. My salary in a year, if I save it, I cannot buy a form. And you say this country will move forward. So it's only criminals, because nobody that makes legislate money will go there. If you say enough of us, they know that somebody is somewhere back rolling and paying. And that's not what it should be. And that is what Prof said, that recruitment process is fundamental to that. So the issue of corruption is there, both in TETFUND and university. But you don't throw away the baby with the bad water. When ETF started, ASU was a member of the board. Somewhere along, because we insisted on that they will not be eating that money they're eating, they took away ASU by amending the act and saying academia. But ASU fought for this agency. They were part of the law. Even the amendment when Chief Manager was in the House. Now you carefully removed ASU, who should serve as a check.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That is a problem.
The check for the government, and then the mouthpiece.
For
the mouthpiece for the citizens and probably parents and students alike. But now, let me come to you, Professor Obi Ajima. You know, now the issue, like I said earlier on when we were off camera, why would each government that comes in have this issue with ASU? Is it that you guys are unwilling to bend, or you guys is it incorruptible? What could be the reason? Each government that comes, there is always strike associated with each government that comes into Nigeria. What can be done so that ASU can even have a government, and probably our children can go to school without this incessant strike? Can government meet your demands ever?
Well, we had, in one way or the other, answered this question. If government wants to meet our demand, or the demand of us, it can. Why not? And the issue is that ASU has been in the struggle, we call it struggle. ASU has been in the way of demanding that Nigeria should be better educationally. ASU has been in the process and then all the time saying that the institutions, educational institutions in Nigeria should have laboratories, should have computers, should have hostels, should have whatever that is good within the standard of education worldwide should be applied in Nigeria, at least to a reasonable percentage. That has been the problem. And ASU is not doing it for its own interest. Even though most of our sons and children are in universities, they're in the public university because, as he has already said, we can't afford the private institution, neither to take them abroad. But many of those are forced to do that, even if it means borrowing, because you know the relevance of education. Now, to answer to your question, ASU will enter into agreements with government. The government will continue to dilly-dally until the time they gave them as the deadline will expire, and they will not do anything. They entered into agreement 2009. So then this is the way things should be done. The process will get things, and the Nigeria will just take shape. Since 2009, nothing has been happening.
The last administration under Buhari said that the demands of ASU is unrealistic.
That is not
so how true could that be?
Then why is it not unrealistic? It should be unrealistic because the children aren't involved.
Okay, let me
the
ask.
Children are not there because
let me ask you one question.
Unrealistic. What are they demanding that is so wonderful that they cannot meet? Is it the hostels? Is it the laboratory? Is it the electricity? No.
Salary increments and the rest of it.
What is even talking about?
Okay, let me ask you one question.
Since 2009, I've remained on the same salary until now.
2009.
Yes. Since 2009.
As at that time, that salary was above $3,000. But as we talk now, that salary is not up to $300. And you said, and you are expecting to attract best brains from outside this country to come and help you develop. It's not going to work. So the question is not about
the demands being unrealistic.
It's about the priority. How can you be giving education 3%, 5%, 7%, and you expect things to move? That is the fundamental issue there. UNESCO said give at least 26%. And they are doing less than 10%. And you think that it will be good. It cannot be good now. And we cannot keep quiet. He has told you here, I'm a professor of at least 10 years. My salary has not changed. But the value has gone down. I told them my salary cannot sustain me for more than a week to live a standard life. So if I demand that I should have a better salary, so that this brain can work well for the country to produce human capital.
Some people that are telling you it's unrealistic collect 29 million, some of them 25 million every month, 1 person. And in fact, some of these things should not be.
So it's a person of priority.
Sure.
Where is our priority? Is our priority about development? But if it's about development, education should take the lead. Last week, there was this news that in the next 5 years, we won't have consultants in our hospitals. Who is listening? Is government listening?
Yeah,
Every year,
we read that in today's dailies.
Every year you produce doctors within 1-2 years, all of them leave you. And you think you are doing well. When you pay pittance to human beings. As even civil servants in both state and federal government are not treated well. Even journalists, you people talking to us here, your salary cannot even pay your transport. Most of them don't come to work again with their vehicles. And we are deceiving ourselves. We are living a lie as a life in this country. The first priority should be to take care of the human beings who will now develop the country. But when somebody is thinking of how can I feed in the next meal, how can that person think and impact meaningfully to the society? Go to Germany. The best paid workers are teachers. Even when others protested, they say, go and become a teacher if you want. Because they know the value. Even in Germany, education is free. Even at university level. Cuba is free. And these are countries that are less endowed than Nigeria. So it's about priority. It's not about being unrealistic. It's about priority. A professor does not take up to $300 as of today. And you are hoping that you make these universities international, whereby a professor from America or UK or South Africa or Ghana can even come to Nigeria. Go to our university and check whether any foreign person is in this country, except it's by marriage. Maybe somebody is married somebody from America and is working there. But when universities were universities, even state universities have foreigners as members of the faculty, as lecturers. I met some as a student in university in the 90s. I met one from India, I met one from America. But they're all gone. They're all gone because what you are paying them cannot fuel their car to come to, cannot take them home. So that is where the issue is.
We talk of Ghana here, we're just making reference with our foreign countries. Outside Africa. What of Ghana?
South Africa.
In the 70s and 80s, the Ghanaians were here in our secondary school.
Yeah. Right. I was taught in secondary school by a lot of Ghanaians.
And many of our students are going to Ghana to study, getting fake certificates from Ghana, from even
Togo and the rest of it.
Because of the way we behave.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and that's the much we can take on the, today's topic. I want to thank you so much, Professor Obiajulu Obikeze, lecturer, Political Science Department, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu, Juku University, Ibaria. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Professor Dennis Aribodo, Department of Parasitology and Entomology, Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Healthcare, Awka Zonal Coordinator, ASU Owerri Zone, and Professor of Public Health Parasitology. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, and thank you, our viewer. Let us work together to ensure that TETFUND does not go and our education is revitalized. Thank you so much.
And that's how we'll be wrapping up this morning. But then we still have our sports segment for you. Don't go anywhere, because all work and no play, they say, makes Ajuru a dull boy. The sports segment comes up immediately.